Hello, I'm Zahra. I'm from IG20A class of poetry. Here I want to explain poetry evaluation of the second coming by William Butler Yeats. Here I have 2 points that I want to explain in the poetry evaluation. The first is intrinsic elements of poet, and the second is type of poet. Here is the text of The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. Okay, I think I have to next about the poem. The Second Coming is a poem written by Irish poet William Butler Yeats in 1919. First printed in the Dial in November 1920, and afterwards included in his 1921 collection of verses Michael Robertus and the Dancer. The poem used Christian imagery regarding the apocalypse and second coming to allegorically describe the atmosphere of post-war Europe. We next to theme of the second coming. The theme that is being taken to the poetry is about chaos. We can clearly see that on the first stanza. How damage can no longer be controlled. There is no more good, only people who are thirsty for patience take control. In the second stanza, it can be concluded that this poem contains religious values. It can be seen from the diction revelation, which means that it is a message from the Creator, or even the Creator himself, who came down to fix the mess. So we next to the tone of poet. The foreboding tone of Irishman. William Butler Yeats' poem, The Second Coming, a vision of social upheaval, can make a reader feel moody and worried. Written in 1919 following World War I and the Russian Revolution, Yeats was especially affected by the 1916 Irish Rising, during which Britain jailed and executed a number of his friends and acquaintances. In The Second Comings, Yeats begins with the ominous image of a bird of prey, a falcon that can hear commands as it spins circle high above its master and out of his control in a widening gyre. Unlike an oceanic whirlpool sucking objects, ships, and people into its funnel, Yeats' gyre dangerous because things fall apart when the center cannot hold. This leads to anarchy, and by the end of the poem, a wolf beast waiting birth. The next tone is the poem has poem's political tone. In 1939, shortly before his death, Yeats wrote to a friend that he foretold the advent of World War II in the Second Coming. Over time, some of the poem's phrases have become aphorism for social disorder. In 1961, Nigerian author Chinua Achebe titled his famous novel about colonization of America, Things Fall Apart. The New York Times in 2007 article noted that politicians have found the poem's tone useful in rhetoric, such as when President George Walker Bush gave a speech about Iraq titled The Center Cannot Halt. So we next to the imagery of poet. Central image that Yeats used to develop tone was the Egyptian Sphinx, dragging itself across the desert while indignant desert birds reel around it until darkness drops. History is waking up after 20 centuries of stony sleeps, or Yeats' 2000-year cycle. The poem says that a rocking cradle of the birth of Jesus Christ, had set the cycle in motion. It asked what rubies slouches toward Bethlehem to usurp the cradle. Yeats' doom and gloom was intentional. Yeats didn't support the Irish rebellion, but he didn't approve of the subsequent execution. A year prior to writing The Second Coming, Yeats wrote to a friend saying that he was despondent about the futures. So next is the figure of speech. The first is personification. A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. By calling it gaze pitiless, he doesn't mean evil or mean-spirited. In fact, the Sphinx really seems to have an inhuman expression that is as indifferent as nature itself. It is blank, statuesque, and incapable of having empathy with other humans. The next is metaphors. The falcon cannot hear the falconers. The falcons refer to the humanity which has lost in direction and it's unable to hear the voice of the divine. The figure of the beast which heralds the biblical apocalypse is also used metaphorically by Yeats in this poem. And also the falconers refers to the control. The blood demon tide is loose and everywhere. The blood demon symbolizes violence, a shape with lion body and the head of man. It symbolizes a powerful creator. So the next is speaker of poet. In the first stanza, he uses a bunch of metaphors to evaluate the present state of the world, and which the second he has aware vision followed by darkness and rhetorical question, which amount to prophecy regarding the second coming. The first person appears only twice in the poem, but the prophetic voice feels very distinct. And personal throughout. Like Yeats in real life, the speaker has an interest in the occult, as we can see from his reference to the Spiritus Mundi. Otherwise, he doesn't use a lot of fancy language, but phrases like mere anarchy and stony sleep demonstrate that he doesn't exactly talk like a regular Jew either. He presents himself as a moral authority and feels comfortable making general pronouncement about the state of things, such as the best like all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Above all, he wants to be scary, and boy, he succeeds. The type of poem is lyric poem and written in blank verse, which means that has a consistent matter but no rhyme scheme, with 22 lines divided into two stanzas. The first stanza has 8 lines, or we call that as an octet. Meanwhile, the second stanza has 14 lines, or we can call that as a sestet. In the first stanza, the poet provides the background of the events in the poem. Then in the second stanza, the poet explains the resolution and climax to the problem of chaotic problem. So the meter is really iambic pentameter, the most common type in all English verse. For example, iambic pentameter was the preferred meter in all of Shakespeare's plays. Yeats' use of this meter is not regular as Shakespeare's. We know this, right? Off the bat because the very first syllable has a stress on it turn in. Also, some lines have well over 10 syllables, such as line 13, which has 13 syllables. And knowing Yeats, we shouldn't assume this is coincidence. However, most of the lines in the poem do have around 10 syllables. As far as form and matter in Yeats' other poetry goes, the Second Coming is fairly typical, although he was no slouch when it came to throwing down some rhymes. The form of poem. The poem is have open form. Because not a specific pattern, and we can see it in the rhyme structure. So the rhyme structure doesn't have a strong rhyme. We can see by the whole lines that the end or rhyme mostly don't have the same ending to others, except for hold and whirl in the third and fourth line of the first stanza, hand and hand in the first and the second line on the second stanza. So other point, the Second Coming is one of Yeats' famous and most anthologized poems, and it is also of the most thematically obscure and difficult to understand because of its stunning and violent imagery and terrifying ritualistic language. The second is Yeats believed that the world was on their hold of an apocalyptic revelation. As history reached the end of the outer gyre, or to speak roughly, and began moving along inner gyre. The Second Coming was the seems quite silly philosophy of prophecy, particular in light of the fact that it has not come true as yet, but as pretty and understood more broadly than as a simple reiteration of the mystic theory of a vision. The Second Coming is a magnificent statement about the contrary forces at work in history and about the conflict between the modern world and the ancient world. The poem may not have the thematic relevance of Yeats' best work, and may not be a poem with which many people can personally identify, but the aesthetic experience of its passionate language is powerful enough to ensure its values and its importance in Yeats' work as a whole. So I think that's all from my explanation about the poetry evaluation. I'm sorry if I missed the thing that I not explained in this presentation, and thank you for your attention, and bye bye. See you.